So thank you to Nigel. It's good to be at INFRARAIL. Thank you all for coming this morning. I will try to be brief. My message is relentlessly upbeat, which is demonstrated by the number of people here and the number of exhibitors. The modern national railway is vital to economic growth in Britain, to job creation and to building houses. And that's a message that we need to get out as widely as we can to every audience, including government. In fact, government know it, as I'll talk about. But that's one of the reasons that I joined Network Rail last July. This is a retirement job. I only do 4 days a week. It's nothing like as hard as running TfL was. And I've got a very good chief executive to do all of the difficult work, Mark Khan, who's around the country talking to our staff at business briefings. But actually, I came to Network Rail because it's actually a good place. It's been through some difficult and challenging changes in the last 2 years and some circumstances, some of its own making, a lot of it's not. But actually, the National Railway Network has never been more vital to the economic future of our country and what it does in transporting people, making connectivity, transporting freight is absolutely essential. The railway industry, the widest railway industry represented here, is absolutely vital too. We employ 36,000 people across the UK. The industry as a whole employs 216,000. That sounds remarkably precise. I bet it's nearer 250,000 if it was measured properly. And my one observation coming here from Transport for London is that actually I think that the railway industry has been pretty successful at concealing its success. It's the fastest growing railway in Europe. Passenger numbers have doubled since 1996. Demand is at 4 or 5% a year and consistently so. And and demand is rising at levels probably not seen since the mid-1870s or 1880s, and freight is booming as well. The railway has the highest customer satisfaction ratings of any railway system in the world. Government subsidies we've cut the cost of running the railway by 40% in the past decade, and government subsidy is half that in France and a third the level of that in Germany, and continues to fall. And against all of that, actually, I don't think we've got that message out half as clearly as we should have done. And I'm not, with Nigel here, I'm not going to be particularly rude about the railway technical press today, other than to say that they have a responsibility, as we do in the railway industry, to get out this success story for the benefit not only of the people who are represented at this exhibition, who are supplying the railway industry, but for the benefit of a host of young people of all backgrounds, of both sexes and every ethnicity, who should join this industry and stay in it for life because it's a great place to work and because it offers a really secure future. And I think that's why we need to be positive about it. And the real challenge that we face is not the previous challenge of decline of my younger era at London Transport, and indeed of the British Rail era. The real challenge is how you fit all these people on a very full system. It's the most congested railway in Europe. More and more trains are full. Timetables are being squeezed to full capacity, not only in the peak hours, if there is such a thing anymore, but in the off-peaks there's no chance of recovery. Single individual problems in one part of the network rebound round the network many hours later because there's no capacity to recover. And what it means is that we've got to be better at train performance, we've got to be better at recovery, and we've got to fit more trains on our railway. The government has recognised this. I asked Sophia, my assistant who's here, to work out what in real terms government investment was in the railways since they were nationalised in 1948. And the answer is that this government is investing more in real terms than any other government has done since the railways were nationalised. Thameslink, the big projects, the electrification projects, all sorts of projects around the country are all very substantially paid for by taxpayers' money, and that's an expression of the confidence that the Chancellor, George Osborne, and the Prime Minister and the government, and Patrick McLaughlin, the Transport Secretary, is putting into the railway network as a means of delivering economic growth in the country. It means more trains, it means more new trains, it means longer trains, faster trains, more platforms and electrification. There is disruption involved. We've got to be cleverer at doing this work. We've got to do it safely. We've got to do it more safely, as Mark Kahn points out. Actually, it's unacceptable anymore for the railway to be casual about the number of its employers and contractors it kills and seriously injures. So alongside doing more work in less engineering time, we've got to do it more safely. But we actually need to do the work, because otherwise we won't make the railway fit to take the people who are coming to it in order to get connectivity to create economic wealth. You've seen that many of the things we've done are successful. Birmingham New Street, it's the first time since that station was built in the 1830s that anybody's wanted to go there for any other reason apart from getting out of it. It's now an attractive place to be. It's a destination in its own right. Some of the other stations we've done are equally attractive, Manchester Victoria and King's Cross. And it's all being invested in by government in a way that's actually both continuous and very credible. To fit all these trains on our railway, we're going to have to invest in new technology. Mark has been evangelical about the digital railway. The only difference between him and me in it is I've run a railway which has digital signalling on it, 4 lines on the tube, and I already know what digital signalling can do for railway capacity and reliability. And our job is to get that fitted to the rest of the railway network as fast as we can, because practically it's going to be the only way that we actually are able to fit on enough trains to cart people around. I was talking to David Raboso on the phone on Monday. He's coming to join Network Rail to run the digital railway programme, as most of you will know. And David and I were musing that actually maybe a better title is the metroisation of much of the national railway network, because actually if we're going to fit the trains on that we need, actually we're going to have to run it like the tube is run, so that actually the trains are very frequent, they'll all be packed, and they go into and out of terminal stations very quickly. And that's a really good thing. And if we do that quickly enough, we'll not only be in advance of Europe, because we need to be, because our railway is more crowded than theirs is, but we can bring not only technical installation to this country, but also the technological development, which ought to create still more jobs in Britain and be a model for the rest of Europe, if not the rest of the world. We've got to do it far faster than anybody currently supposes. It can't be like previous signalling schemes, which is a 50-year programme of which only the first 10 years was ever delivered. We're going to have to do it really quickly. And above all, we're going to have to pay for it. And we're going to have to pay for it in circumstances where now Network Rail is on the national books. Then we're never going to get enough money from the Treasury to actually pay for everything through the public purse. So one of the pieces of Nicola's report about Network Rail and its future, which Mark and I entirely agree with, is the necessity of getting third-party private funding into the railway. Nicola's essay about concessions shows really that that's quite a difficult route. We certainly believe in the near term that one of the easiest ways is to actually get the digital railway done by the people who install it, the people who supply it, paid for by private finance and funded from the increasing capacity that can arise if you apply that technology successfully, which won't be there if you don't. And I think that's an obvious way. The other obvious way of doing it is to actually get the third-party beneficiaries of more railway capacity. That's people whose jobs are created and who build houses and who are the recipients of the Chancellor's taxation strategy of allowing more local people to have business rate growth and capital grants if they form themselves regionally. And they too are going to have to pay for some of this railway capacity in CP6, because the Treasury isn't going to pay for all of it. Nicola said that. She also confirmed that restructuring Network Rail and devolving it is the right thing to do, and we believe it is. Part of that is the alignment of performance targets with the train operating companies, so that actually people in our organisation believe that they are the customers and not the regulator. And even better news is that the regulator, or at least the new chair and chief executive of the ORR, also believe that too. So I think we're going in the right direction. We agree with Nicola's all of her substantial recommendations. And for the avoidance of doubt, we also agree with her last recommendation in her report, which is about diversity, because alongside this growth in the railway, we're going to have to get in more people who can manage this growth, both operationally and technologically, and we have to make the railway and its supply industry appeal to the widest diverse group of people we can, and that includes women, that includes ethnic groups, and it shouldn't just be represented by people of my age, my colour, and my sex. And we're going to have to do that because the only way we're going to manage this growth is to get more and more young people into the industry because it has a future, and not because they're just railway enthusiasts. And I think it's really important. I spoke last Friday evening at the annual dinner of the Young Rail Professionals, which is a fantastic organisation, nearly 4,000 people. They've brought themselves together. They haven't been brought together by us or people of our age or our organisation or any other organisation. They're represented right across the railway firmament, the Network Rail, the operators, the supply industry. They are diverse. It's full of young women and full of people from different ethnic backgrounds, and they are the future of this industry, and we have a duty to support them to actually grow into the jobs that we're going to create to manage the railway of the future. And I think what's really important is you go around an exhibition like this is that all of the people represented here should have a hand in actually bringing those young people on, because I'm 63 now, I'm not going to last much longer. This retirement job's going to run out sometime, and I'm going to be at least sitting in the garden, if not driving my old bus around. And we've got to replace ourselves by the widest diverse selection of people we can, because it's the only way we're going to get the skills into the industry in order to drive it forward. And that is a message that we need to take away. But the primary message is about the fact that the railway creates economic growth, jobs and houses. It's what the government want, it's what the country needs, and we're doing it. And I think the business success of people represented at this exhibition is about supplying the railway so that that can happen, growing the people who work in it so that they can deliver it themselves. And what I hope is that the exhibition's successful, because we're at Network Rail, the whole railway industry needs the railway industry to grow in order that we can support the country's economic growth, job creation and building houses. Nigel, thank you very much.
Sir Peter, thank you very much indeed. Before we go any further, just two shameless plugs. One is, you mentioned David Webozo joining you to look after Digital Railway. He is our keynote speaker here tomorrow. So those of you who are coming back tomorrow to the show, 10:30 here, David Webozo will be talking. The other is Young Rail Professionals. Rail Engineers Sister Magazine Rail Staff carries a full page on the doings of the Young Rail Professionals every month. So when you next get your copy of Rail Staff, look through it and you can see what YRP is up to. And it's a wonderful organisation. They're fully supported by us. Right. So those plugs over, we have time for a couple of questions for Sir Peter. We have a microphone to come round to so we can all hear you. Please tell us who you are and what your question is. The microphone's on its way, sir.
Yes, my name is Malcolm Linges. During the 70s, quite a lot of sections of double track were singles, and I know that Network Rail has been able to reinstate the doubling on some of the sections, but what sort of progress and what sort of plans are there to take this further forwards so to increase the capacity on a lot of lines where it does need to be put back to double track?
Well, we have limitless ambition, providing somebody will pay for it. And that's the point of talking about where the benefits of this stuff accrue, which is that actually running more trains and more frequent trains is actually of benefit to somebody. In the course of writing my report, I was besieged by people with their pet projects coming in to see me. And the question that I asked all of them was, if this is so beneficial to your business, to your area, to your locality, to your local economy, where's the money to pay for some of this actually? It's a reasonable question, because I think up to now, because of the previous way in which NR was financed, it didn't really matter. The debt just went up. And it was okay, and the question was actually how much work could you do and what was the economic case. I very strongly believe in CP6 that if people want to see their sections of single line doubled, or they want better and more train services that require more infrastructure, then they better put some money into it, because otherwise it won't have any benefit. And we're not up to adjusting the railway for more capacity if there's no benefit to be derived from doing it. There's somebody over there.
Dave Holiday. Very pleased to hear that sort of comment on that style of thing, because I've always told people that per se running trains never makes anybody any money. It's actually the value that accrues to the land. The loss of railway hotels being a very interesting example, because they fed the railway to take the trains and hotels benefited from the railway. So it's a mutual thing. You've got a lot of things happening with your property portfolio, and I'm concerned that someone's going to whip the high-gain property portfolio away from Network Rail when it can actually provide a lot of groundwork for that, supporting it. And also to look at the inefficiencies of commuter services that come in and terminate, destroy paths. Crossrail is now giving us a through route, which means we can get more trains in and out through Paddington and through Liverpool Street. Can you see more of that happening, turning terminal stations into through stations?
Well, you're right about the railway creating value in land, because, and you're also right about the efficiency of paying for railway improvements through some sort of contribution from developers, and that was in fact what I was talking about. If you look at the funding package for Crossrail, it has some substantial elements of funding paid for through various methods of contributions and taxation from future increases in the value of land. The same is true actually of the Vauxhall and Nine Elms extension of the Northern Line, and the same will undoubtedly be true of a lot of other railway developments across Britain. I think you might be right about increasing the value of hotels, but actually we intend to sell as much of the property portfolio as we can, but not at any price, in order to fund more railway investment. I don't feel particularly apologetic about it. The railway's been selling its assets for the last 80 years in order to invest in new production, and the only question is the efficiency of doing so, because you don't want to sell assets and invest them in things with a lesser economic benefit, and I don't think that Mark and I intend to do that. But actually there is a case for us to concentrate our investment on the things that really matter, and I'm not at all bothered about selling off the Railway Arch estate. If we can get enough money for it, and if we can use that to invest in railway capacity, that is actually the right thing to do. Through routes and terminal stations, well, if you can afford to build Crossrail too, and I hope we can, that's a very effective way, like Crossrail is, of getting a through service across London. My only observation in operating terms is that if you pop down the Bakerloo line at Elephant and Castle, what you'll see in train termination, is that the train arrives in the peak hours, the driver gets out at one end, another driver gets in the other end and drives it off. And in 20 years, every London terminus will be like that, because it will be the only way that you'll get more trains in and out of it. And I can't see any other way of operating, which is why I think it's a terrible word and somebody will invent a better one. Metroisation is the right answer, because having trains hanging around in London termini for 20 or 30 minutes in peak hours can't be an efficient utilisation of platforms. But we need a signalling system to allow us to do it. We need franchises that mandate that to happen, and we'll need enough staff and enough rolling stock to allow the railway to cope with that capacity.
Thank you.
Hi, Felicity Koo from Atkins. I think we're moving on with high speed 2, which is the good news. Any vision on how you like us to deliver this, Sir Hendy?
Well,
delivering high speed.
I'm very comfortable with the prospect of an enormous railway project being delivered by a dedicated team of people, because actually that's precisely what's happened with Crossrail. You can't expect NR with the project portfolio it's got also to deliver the biggest ever high-speed line in Britain, and I'm very confident that David Higgins and Simon Kirby will deliver it. When it is delivered, it will then be part of the National Railway Network, and there's a separate question about its integration, because in order to be an effective part of the National Railway Network, it will have to be operated as part of it. But delivering it, I think they need to get on with it. I'm very happy. We were very happy with Crossrail to get Terry Morgan and Andrew to get on with that, because actually at TfL we had a lot to do. So I don't think there's a conflict there, and in fact I think it's the right way of doing business.
Just another shameless plug. I can tell you Jonathan Ferry, who's Construction Procurement Director of HS2, is here at 12:15. So if you've got another question about HS2, come back and ask that then. We have one question behind you, Pat.
Yes, my name's Hugh Edwards. One of the trends in the last few years has been on climate change, and it seems to have affected the railways, and there have been very serious collapses in the infrastructure in the last few years. There's Folkestone to Dover, that's going to take a long time to repair. There's Settle and Carlisle, Dawlish, and because of climate change, it's not Network Rail's fault, all this, but it must be a very serious concern to you that it takes huge amounts of money to repair these lines, and it's going to end up, is there going to come a point that one day you're going to say, enough is enough, we can't afford to repair these lines anymore, because it's not economically viable?
Well, I won't like it in Cornwall if we do, will they? I think the answer is, I mean, you're right. There'll be people represented at this exhibition whose businesses are about measuring the effect of climate change on structures and on earthworks, and I suspect they're quite good companies to invest in, because we're seeing 100-year events happening every 2 years, and that's quite disturbing. And if you look at the landslips between Newcastle and Carlisle, which I went to, and the one at Armathwaite on the Sutton and Carlisle, which I haven't yet, actually they are big issues. They're big events, aided and abetted sometimes by the